Thank you for joining the webinar for Developers Bay this noontime, and I'm glad that you chose to spend your lunch break learning from me about this topic, and also later on when if you watch this recorded on the YouTube channel. So in the next 30 minutes, compressed time, 30 minutes is very short time to speak about cloud migration and modernization mistakes in this topic, but I'm going to try my best to compress all my knowledge and share it out to you in this webinar. So I hope you're having a good food and lunch as you're watching or listening, and feel free to post your questions during the stream or later on if you comment up later on. So my name is Jonah Andersson. I work. I have. I'm a person that inspired technology or tech to others. I'm from Sweden as well, so I can speak Swedish. I could have delivered this in Swedish, but I want to be inclusive to everybody in terms of learning. So I decided to deliver this session in English. But what I do is I'm a person with different hats, but my full time job today is senior Azure consultant at an IT consulting company called Solidify. And I also have my own company that I use for my IT training is under my name, Jonah Andersson, the tech. I'm very active in the community as a community leader, as Microsoft MVP and certified trainer. And I also wrote a book about Azure, which is kind of related to the topic that I'm presenting to you today. And my scope of skills varies. So, by background, I have several years of experience developing .NET applications. And recently, I've been also adding on my uh, technology toolbox, the cloud development within Azure, cloud engineering, and even DevSecOps in the line of work that I do. So maybe some of you have seen me through the network of developers Bay, the yearly developers day. I was actually that's where I first met the wonderful people at Developers Bay when I won the Årets Utvecklare last year, which happened to be also my birthday. So I was born in the Programmer's Day. But there is an ongoing nomination for this year. So if you want to nominate someone or a company or initiative, feel free to scan the QR code and nominate. And it would be an honor to find more role models within Sweden as well. So when I think about to kick off our topic today, when I think about AI and the tech evolution that we have today, I always think about cloud computing as a starting point. I myself learned programming before the cloud computing became popular. But I do see a relevance between AI technologies and evolution that we have or we're coping up today in terms of cloud computing, which is the highlight topic today. So there's a research actually by Forrester in terms of how to get this competitive advantage when it comes to app modernization. So you can scan the QR code to read this in detail, but there is a part of it that I want to share with you. And I took a screenshot right now, that you're seeing in the screen, that some of the challenges that holding back some with from the technology infrastructure modernization was this top thing. So the top that you see there is too many manual processes or handoffs, slow operational process, and difficulty in making case for investment when it comes to technology infrastructure. Security is also another challenge, as well as leadership, like convincing the leaders of these organizations to do the migration or modernization. And the last there, which is also relevant, the lack of required IT skills, and that means that in order for an organization or a project to be able to migrate to any cloud platform, they need to have a group of people with this IT skills and knowledge, and they are really relevant. But I have a story to share because if I could travel back in time, I wouldn't go back. You know, the movie, like the movie Back to the Future. There's a famous car there that can time travel. But if I were to time travel, I would not go go to the future. I will go back. I will ride this car and go back, take a giant leap back to the past. And you might be wondering why is Jonah is going to the past and not to the future. And that's because I had a cloud migration journey that really led me and taught me a lot of lessons that I'm sharing with you today. So I am also known in the tech community as Wonder Woman in Azure. So I had a chance to dress up like a superhero when we did a charity initiative at the conference. And at the to support an event like Women Who Code, and it became my title. So it come up like I was like a Wonder Woman at that time who had the mission to lift or to migrate a legacy .NET application to the cloud that was old, not well documented, on-prem, and it wasn't a really well-established structured kind of application, and it's being used by our client here in Sweden. I won't disclose because I'm not allowed to disclose details, but I was part of that migration project. So my cloud mission was to move this on-prem like infrastructure with old servers and virtual machines on-prem on Windows 2008 R2. If you think about the eight, the year there is pretty old. And then our reporting was in SQL Server reporting. It wasn't Power BI that time. It was monolithic architecture. It was an ASP.NET 4.7, and now today we are in the highest, one of the highest, which is .NET 9, and probably .NET 10 is coming. So it was a .NET legacy app, and our goal was to move to the cloud because these servers that we have on-prem that we use for like databases, for web servers, and our all of our environments, they were not supported. They were stopped and no longer supported. So we had to modernize it and slash migrate to a cloud platform, and that we decided to choose Microsoft Azure for that. And we have chosen Azure because of this like features that the cloud has, and the .NET programming language or technology stack is pretty close to the Microsoft technologies. It's easier to develop with it because of the SDK being supported. So if you think about Azure, there's this like package and platforms of different services in different categories. So there's cognitive, IoT, AI, machine learning, and there's also focus on cloud, app dev, SQL, and even security. So you have the entire uh, uh, services that you can integrate it with your application, including the hybrid cloud scenarios. So it has a lot of services or cloud to offer, just like our Swedish smorgastorta. So when I eat smorgastorta, it reminds me about the different things you can put on the cake, and it's good regardless if it's like with shrimps or with finca or any other like kind of variations of it. So Azure, I consider Azure as something like that also. It has a lot of things you can get put in the basics, and then you can add on some enhanced services if needed based on your use case or problem, or if you want to modernize to be competitive in the market out there in terms of IT products. So the migration project that I was a real journey. It was like a real project, and back then I was a junior developer and not didn't know so much about Azure, but I was forced on in action to learn a lot about cloud development. And it was also very interesting because I was a junior developer, got this big project, but it was a small team, meaning it's not a group of 10 20 people working on a big project that's in production side by side. It's actually just me, another developer that I kind of like do as a bull plunk or exchange ideas, maybe a business requirement guy and a project manager. So it's pretty small, not even the typical like a Scrum team. So it was a very proactive or very big project for a small team. And moving forward, when we think about cloud, before you even start, there's this term, at least in the Microsoft technologies, called cloud rationalization. And what it is means that you're evaluating your assets. And in this concept, I'm talking about IT assets that you have that is on prem, and you kind of like assess and determine what is the best way for you to migrate or modernize your IT asset to the cloud, regardless of whatever platform that you have decided to move your applications for. So, in part of this rationalization is the 5 R's. So there's the option to rehost, to refactor, to re-architect, rebuild, and then replace. So the rehost is basically what we are used to often hear a lot, the lift and shift. So whatever you have on prem, try to lift it and put it on the cloud. But it's not as easy as that. There are ways or few projects that probably successfully done this using the help of infrastructure as a service or using Azure virtual machines. That's possible, but sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes you need to refactor the code, you need to re-architect, you need to rebuild and mix. And sometimes, if it doesn't work, you just like replace the entire application as a software as a service because it's just too old. So this different R's are can be combined and can be done in sequence depending on the type of applications that you're trying to modernize or move up to the cloud. So this is the circle. It's not the DevOps infinity circle, but it's the circle that kind of like resembles the modernization and the migrate part of the R. So you see here, migrate something that exists, the blue part, and then on the left side you see create something new. And you might wonder, why do you want to create something new, like refactor? It's because you're modernizing and you want to be like not the old dinosaur in your IT application. You want to be able to move at the same time you are modernizing, so you can do AI stuff, you can be competitive along with the other organizations are also doing great stuff and to gain customers or users for your app. So, what if all of your 5 R's doesn't work? Like you get into a situation because you have to, when you're doing things or a project, you need to think about the worst case scenario. And if all R's have you tried doesn't work, what would we do? So the first answer that I could like advise based on experience is to let it go. Meaning you don't need to force it if it doesn't work. You tried everything. What you can do is you can start new application in the cloud. Think of a good architecture, good perspective based on the use case or business requirement, and start fresh. Just like this plant that you're seeing right now. I'm a gardener. I love I like planting vegetables and flowers, even though we have short seasons of summer here in Sweden. So I like this start new and start fresh perspective after you let it go if things doesn't work out with those R's. But for my case, in that specific project, we did the lift and shift. It didn't work with Azure VMs because we were getting errors. It was too expensive, and it didn't just work out. So we that didn't work. So we tried also refactoring, meaning the code base that I was involved with as a developer had had some issues in it, so it didn't work either. And then we did the re-architect and rebuild, and that worked. So, but even though we had a prepared application to the cloud at that time, it wasn't made it to production. It's just like in the development phase, and we wondered why. It's because the client and the organization that are leading this project were not like willing or ready to deploy it and put it out there to the real users. And the reason for that, it's because of security, compliance, and they were not really confident about the cloud at all at that time. So I took a break. To make the long story short, that project was stopped, but I had a break because it was a lot of work for me, for example. And I did some reflections on how it went, which came up with a question: what went wrong in that project? I mean, it was finished. We did tried everything there, but what went wrong? Which led me back to the time travel introduction that I have. What could we have done differently? What could have I done differently? And instead of asking those questions, it gives you back a list of mistakes that you shouldn't do instead. And because of that experience, I'm able to come up with some top 8 common mistakes based on that. And it's just top 8. There's a lot more that you can come up, but these are the top important ones that you can think about in terms of cloud migration and modernization, regardless if it's like an old app like I had that it wasn't well documented, regardless if it's .NET or another technology like Java. These are like common ones. So the first one, as I said, this is based on the true story and my experience as a developer, architect, and someone that was put into the field of really working and making it, trying to make it work. So mistake number one is uh, starting without a cloud migration strategy or a plan. So when you the start of a migration or modernization is really important to be planned with strategy, just like any projects. This means that you need to know what is the business use case, what technology stacks are you going to use, who are the team that will be using it, what's the plan, when is it going to be out, like the timeline of the entire project, and what is the project we will start working on in this case. And then when I think about strategy, I think about chess. So a first move really matters, even though you're moving a piece that is a pawn, which is probably the least value in a chessboard. It is important. The first move matters because that allows those big pieces, or we can call it also big decisions, that allows us to make those smart moves. So not starting without strategy is one first mistake. The second one is not paying your technical debt before you move or modernize for the cloud. So there are many organizations, based on what I know and what I have experienced, that people or organizations just want to move to the cloud without thinking, hey, let's assess first our existing apps or infrastructure. Do we have a tech debt here? Is it big? Is it small? Regardless of the volume or the size of the tech debt, it's always good to try to pay it before you move to the cloud, because cloud is huge and they can be very expensive if you have a lot of like running loop or data that are still in that tech debt category. So my advice is to pay your tech debt now before you move to the cloud, and not later when you're already established in production on the cloud. So as you can see in the image here, a picture which I really like when I speak about tech debt. This is one of the cartoons you'll find on the internet when you search tech debt. So you'll see that there's a house in there, and the engineers are trying to figure out why is it taking time to build this new window. And in an IT project, it's a new feature. Why does it take time? It's because the foundation of the application or the house still has its issues. And you see the umbrella there is being used as a roof. An umbrella is not enough, especially when storm comes into that house around the area. So I think you get what I mean, the importance of that. And then the third one is the lack of cloud education and knowledge. So not being able, not educating your team, your organization of what you are about to embark in a new project, is a big mistake that I also can share, because I think that being able to be ready, being knowledgeable about what cloud really is and how many clouds are available for you out there and what cloud suits your use case and your clients are essential in the development. And I'm just talking in the perspective, not just organizational perspective or business perspective, but also in the perspective of the teams and developers and IT quality assurance teams that are gonna like work on this together to collaborate on a successful project. And then four is like starting big, as it relates to the previous mistake, starting big and not quick. So there's a concept, for example, in Azure that you can start with a baby project or mini project or proof of concept project to start with, and don't move your entire like big complex application right away in such projects. Do a mini projects, part of your implementation maybe first in the cloud, and see how it works and take slow. And I come up with this 5S, like start small, smart steps to success. So it's like a good 5S to remind us that baby steps is always a good way to start. And then five is not knowing, no knowledge of what you're going into. So like even though we have the Azure knowledge, the good team, a good business strategy for cloud modernization and the plan, if you're not knowledgeable, or at least have one person in your organization or your team that's aware of the cloud security and compliance that are required when you're building things for the cloud, then it's also kind of like a mistake that you can probably miss during the process of migration. And the next one is not making sure that your teams are in sync. And when I think about syncing, it's about like, in an IT project, there's the group of developers, group of QA team, DevOps or platform engineers, and then there's a group of business leaders, maybe working in a Scrum project or a different way. I mean, a specific way of working, and maybe they have their own ways of interpreting things in a specific project, different translation. But it's important that everyone is in sync in terms of what tools, what platforms, what programming languages that are being used, what strategy that are being used when you're in the process of emerging yourself in such a kind of migration or modernization project. So I'm from the Philippines, and we have this dance called tinikling, which resembles a synergy and synchronization in terms of like everyone working together in spite of the uniqueness and team as well. And it's also the Bayanihan spirit that I also like. It. The goal or the project is to move that house before the storm comes from that area, and they're moving it in a better location. And teamwork and spirit bayanihan is one of the things that I kind of relate into in a project, any project, including the cloud migration one. So number seven, which is second of the last, is not utilizing the free tools such as AI. I mean AI tools and not seeking helps from cloud providers and experts. So most of the companies or organizations that are using Azure or using any cloud platforms, there's this partnership program and even experts program. So utilize those tools and support from the cloud provider themselves because they do have it. But if your leaders in your organization doesn't let you know, then you won't know either. But this is a good thing not to miss. And always think about free tools out there. Maybe there's an open to source tools that your project doesn't need to cost every month to pay in order to do your modernization. And then eight is not is last mistake is like skipping and ignoring the importance of cost when you're moving to the cloud. And this is very important. FinOps, cost management, monitoring. And if you're building your apps with AI, it's always good to know beforehand the responsible use of AI, especially in different platforms. So just like in cloud computing, there's this like different deployment models. Depending on the deployment model you choose, the company is responsible, the cloud provider is responsible. There's actually a shared responsibility model for AI as well, depending on the platform or model that you're using for the cloud. So think about those things as well, so you don't get issues later on, like in terms of like GDPR or compliance security related risks for that. So those are the top eight common mistakes. If you think you have done these mistakes or you have something to add, feel free to let me know or share it on our interaction chat so we can like elaborate or discuss it further later on, also even after the webinar. But what are my tips? I mean, I'm giving you, I mean, the talk is about mistakes not to make, but I'm giving you now the tools that you can add in your toolbox to think about. And I think I have about four or five, and we're almost out of time, but I hope you can stay a few minutes more so I can share the last parts of this. And this will be the cloud migration tools, which serves as your like key takeaways that you can bring home with you or bring in your mind toolbox after this launch webinar. So the first one that I want to like recommend is to before you during the planning phase or initial in like idea phase is the cloud adoption framework for Microsoft Azure. And there's this is I'm Microsoft Azure focused, but there is also a CAF I know from for other platforms. So the CAF or the adoption framework is actually a collection of documentation, guides, and even assessment for cloud migration. And it does have this like different flow, step by step in sequence that you and your team can follow, like defining the strategy. What does it mean? Planning phase. When you're planning, you're done, you're ready. And then in the adapt phase, you do have the option of two options of adaptation. It's either you combine both of them, are you migrating, or you're doing modernization or innovating. And both of them can be, I mean, combined in parallel depending on what's the goal that you have. And then when you're done with that, you're already in the cloud. The next phase would be this governance in terms of like best practices, security, like operations maturity, resilience. How resilient are your applications when they're built for the cloud? Are you scaling up based on monitoring and things like that? And then the next one is FinOps. So I shared that the common mistakes that some missed is the cloud costs. And I've heard a lot of stories from my friends that have used cloud that they just like move in the cloud and then tried starting running their applications and they have a lot of big bills from the cloud provider. So I think even in the beginning phase, consider doing the cost management tools. And Azure, for example, got that covered with different tools. Like, for example, the Azure TCO calculator allows you as an organization or a team to compare how much money you would save from on-prem IT assets you have and how much you would save in 5 years if you move these IT assets to the cloud. And same goes with pricing calculator. As an architect or developer implementing a new, building something new or apps to Azure, you can use the Azure pricing calculator by putting in all the services you need for that app on Azure, and then you get an estimate how much monthly cost would it have. And then when you're on the cloud, you have the Azure cost management that allows you to manage your costs every month and even alert the responsible team that can warn and control the cost and automate it also to scale it up or down based on the Azure budget or maybe based on the demand you have in production. And third is the Azure Migrate. It's a group of tools that allows you to migrate your on-prem servers, data, or web to Azure. And it also has this like option to put your applications to containers. And there's this flow of decision tree in terms of like migrating .NET apps. So you can follow it through. I'll provide the link to this presentation to Maria or developers later on, so you can watch this in details. And if you're using .NET or Java for an old application, there's actually a tool in Visual Studio that is called AppCut plugin or Azure Migrate and Code Assessment. You can learn more about it through this QR code. But what it does is going to assess your entire code base for compatibility in Azure. And you will see the graph, what you need to take care, if it's ready or not, and some scores that you can analyze and share to your team as you plan for your migration. Assessment is also something I recommend, part of the Azure Migrate, and it assesses your cloud readiness and how prepared are you in your journey in the cloud. And well architected framework is kind of like the sister of CAF because I mean even if you already migrated, you can use a well architected framework in as your guide in terms of how you can build resilient and robust applications in the cloud in the category of reliability, cost, operations, performance, and even security in all aspects of your services within the cloud, or for example, Azure. And of course, I always advocate that you don't need to move everything on the cloud. In my use case, we had to move to the cloud, but if at that time we had the hybrid solution of Azure Arc at that time, then I should have used the Azure Arc at that time. But this came just like years ago. And for you, if you have a use case that needs multi-cloud, on-prem, data center because of GDPR or compliance, you can choose this option. And it has a lot of ways where how you can have your, if you see on the top, these are the resources on the cloud, but you can also have distributed location that is enabled by Azure Arc for the on-prem, such as the SQL Server and other services like AI and even the virtual desktop and other popular services. Azure Local is something new. It's a renamed version, but more in terms of cloud infrastructure for distributed locations. So it allows you to treat your physical machines on-prem like cloud resources. So this is new, and I think it's still in preview, worth checking out. And then, of course, every use case or a problem depends on your needs. I mean, if you're someone new to the cloud or even Azure, it's very confusing. Jonah, I need an architect. I need you, something like that, because you need to know what is the right service to use for my problem. And if you think about Azure, there's a lot of services for serverless, event driven, microservices, there's containers. It's hard to start. So there's this good graph that Microsoft has for at least choosing the flow or for Azure Compute Services. So it's giving you a start point. Are you going to migrate or you're going to like modernize? Yes or no? And using this flow, it will help you at least guide you at that is the right service that I can use in my implementation or translation from the old one to the new one hosted on the cloud. And I think I went overtime at least 6 minutes. You have so much to learn, as Yoda also said there, but learn by doing. That's what I always said to everything. And when you're in your journey, have fun. Like my dog Lawrence, he likes rolling in the snow during winter time, like now. And the I want to end and finalize that the journey of that cloud migration, even the mistakes that I've also we committed in that project, motivated me to write my first book, which you see right now in my back as well. It motivated me to write my first book because I know out there some developer teams and even IT organizations are still struggling or having issues understanding how they can get started and moving to the cloud. But if this book is ideal if you're using Azure or upskilling your team for this platform. So reach out if you're curious about my book. You can scan it and you get a signed copy as well. But for further learning resources, I recommend a lot of QR codes here for cloud adoption framework, WAF, and even Azure Migrates are good tools. And finally, don't rush up rocket flying to the cloud because I always believe, just like Benjamin Franklin said, by failing to prepare, you are actually preparing to fail in your journey. So take your time and have fun. So thank you so much for listening. And I'm now ready to answer any questions if there's any and connect to me anytime on LinkedIn as well. Let's see. Yes. Uh,
Thank you so much, Jonah, for this presentation.
yeah,
Well,
you're welcome.
yeah, well, I would like to start with some questions, and then
Mhm.
are you who participate in this webinar live, you can, of course, write to me private in the chat or in the open chat if there's anything else. And I have a question which you announced with the cloud costs. And the question is, what's the most overlooked mistake in cloud migration that organizations often realize too late? And are there any other most overlooked mistakes?
Okay, that's a very good question. I think the common one that I noticed is that um, I actually have a few in mind right now. I'm thinking out loud with the question, but I think what I can share to our audience or watchers is the mistake of uh, underestimating cost as well. For one of the common like uh, concerns I heard is that we cannot move to the cloud because it can be very expensive, but it's very broad and general uh, like perspective, because cloud can be very expensive if you have not architected your applications for the cloud properly based on the business use case and what it does. And it can be also very cheap. I know a project where they use serverless or Azure functions and they almost doesn't pay anything on Azure or cloud. So the cost is something that sometimes are that are not are often missed or overlooked mistakes. And also the importance of really understanding the business use case and translate it into architecture with the mindset that, hey, this system is going to be running like for 10, 20 years. Think about how it will look like in the future. So when you architect the entire solution, think about that, how would it be resilient in the next 10 years, 20 years, so that the entire team or project or developers doesn't need to fix tech debt and bugs or enhancement all the time and build up something complex. So those are the major one. At least I have more, but that's the major one that I came up with just now.
Yeah, thank you. And sort of a follow up on that
Mhm.
is if you can share a real world example of a failed cloud migration project. What went wrong and the key lessons learned was?
Okay. I think my graduation project was one real world example. I mean, you know the story. I shared a bit of it, what I learned, and became this session. But the good lesson learned for that is that I found out today that that project is no longer in production. No users are using it, so it's phased out because of that mistakes that the organization that were trying to improve it were not like pushing it for like innovation. So that project didn't really make it, because if you're an application with that kind of system that is still old, you can expect that your company or the organization or that project will be losing customers, because you know customers wants an application that works well. So think about that as well, when you're building things for your application. Like my point is like our applications should be evolving along with technology. So if your app is like 10 years old, 10 years older, and the other apps or competitors are already like highly advanced AI smart apps, then we're kind of behind, and the organization or the team needs to rethink about the strategy on that.
Yeah, and on that mark, how do you balance the need for speed in cloud migration with ensuring long-term architectural sustainability and security?
Oh, that's a good question. Need for speed. That's good. In terms of, yeah, I mean the cloud. I mean, choosing cloud itself already is also one first answer to the needs of speed. Meaning, when you decided to move to the cloud, you're moving away from the traditional on-prem. That save us money, that save us time, because you have everything that you can manage anywhere through the internet. But for the need of speed, I would recommend first is to uh, make use of assess first if the platform as a service is a good option. That's the first number one. Many organizations are moving from the traditional on-prem to platform as a service, meaning that developers or IT teams can focus in building the apps either through containers, through serverless like Azure Functions, and app services and API management in that sense, technical wise. And they utilize it so they don't need to think about the underlying infrastructure. It's easy to develop by the team. And another way to approach the need for speed is also making use of the hybrid solutions that Azure has. For example, the Azure Arc implementation, where you already have an existing on-prem, but you want to modernize. Then do something about it by using this tool as Azure Arc that connects your on-prem in the data center, your own, to the cloud, and make use of the modern stuff here without like losing too much time and resources. So you just need to invest on setting up the connection from on-prem to the hybrid. I mean to the cloud. So those are my answer to that. And in terms of security, invest also in security, because it's not just modernizing; it's also about building security into your app infrastructure. So I highly recommend DevSecOps process in terms of like pipelines for development, and also there's like kind of like a protection on the cloud as well. For Azure, there's the Microsoft Defender for cloud that protects the entire cloud infrastructure, including your on-prem and DevOps instances as well. So yeah, I hope that answers the question, Maria.
Thank you so much, Jonah. And now we're out of time.
Yes.
And but thank you again for doing this webinar with us. And I hope everyone can enjoy a nice lunch
Yes,
after this.
thank you. Thank you so much, Maria, and everybody that's watching us live and later on. Thanks for watching and feel free to reach out.
Yes. Goodbye and thank you.
Bye.